In this chapter, we're going to look at modifying a worksheet. There are going to be many times when you're creating brand new worksheets, but from time to time you'll need to make changes to existing worksheets and workbooks. Some of those changes are going to go beyond just, re-entering a formula or updating a value. So doing things like adding columns, adding rows, finding a particular piece of data and then replacing it if you made a mistake or if there's been a name change or something like that. And then using proofing and researching tools. So those are all of the topics that we're going to discuss in this chapter on modifying a worksheet in Excel 2019. In this first topic, we're going to focus on inserting columns and rows, deleting them, adjusting them. There are going to be times where you have to make some adjustments. You have to be able to modify the cells. You have to be able to add columns and rows. It's just an important part of the ongoing modification of worksheets. So let's talk first about the insert and delete options. All right. Now, if you're just trying to add information at the end of a column or a row, that's easy. But what if you need to add a cell or a row or a column right in the middle? So you got a bunch of existing data and you have to add it right in the middle. Well, the cells group is a group of commands on the Home tab, and it gives you access to a couple commands, the insert and the delete commands, and we're seeing those here. If you choose to use those commands, then Excel is going to insert or delete whatever you happen to currently have selected. So if you have a single cell, it's the single cell. If you have the whole row and you hit delete, it's going to delete the whole row. It's important to understand here what the defaults are, but it's also something that you can just play around with and see what happens. Excel defaults to pushing cells or rows down to make room for new ones. Okay, so if you're adding cells, if you're adding rows, the default on the insert is going to be shift cells down. You can make additional choices, of course. You have shift cells to the right, or you're going to insert an entire row or an entire column. Notice if I was inputting information into a single cell, and then I said shift that cell down, I'm technically creating a new cell that now doesn't have any data. When you delete, what's going to happen? To the left, up, the entire row, and deleting the entire column. Based on what you're trying to do, it generally becomes pretty straightforward as to which of those options you would choose. There's also times where you need to enter data in formula and it just doesn't fit in the column or row, and so it goes beyond the cell borders, which just makes it really difficult to read. So what happens is you need to adjust the size. This is actually really easy to do. There's a couple of methods. You can go up into the columns to the vertical bar that separates, for instance, column A and B like we have here. Left click and then drag it to adjust it. The second option is just to double click it. If you double click it, once you get that mouse pointer, then it is going to automatically adjust the column to the width of the cell that contains the greatest amount of data. All right? So you do want to keep that in mind because you might have a cell that has a lot more data than the others, and now you have this massive column. And so in that case, you can decide maybe whether to reduce the amount of text in the single cell. So the drag to adjust is one way, and then you have the double click to adjust. This is more of an automatic type of thing, okay, where it just adjusts to the maximum size. There's also an auto-fit feature in Excel. The auto-fit feature will allow you to automatically adjust row height, column width to match cell content. So this is similar to the double-clicking, only this is doing it for everything, and it will just automatically do it as you go along. So as I then say I do column width, as I enter a data into a cell that exceeds that cell's width, it's just going to automatically fit it. So the difference is, the other two I'm doing kind of one at a time, whereas this one I would just do once. You can also use the row height and the column width dialog boxes to adjust the cell size. This also would be a global change or change to whatever you have selected, I should say. So whatever you have selected, you can just manually adjust it using numbers. A couple other commands that we have, the hide and unhide command. That's going to allow you to just suppress the visibility of a particular row or column in your worksheet. Let's say, for instance, payroll. And so you want to maybe share this data, this worksheet with somebody else, and there's certain information in there that needs to be hidden. Even complete worksheets within a workbook are hidden. But you can easily do that with the hide and unhide commands. As you can see here, it goes right from A to G. So B through F are hidden. All you have to do is select the row, and then right-click anywhere within that selection. You can choose hide or unhide. It's also available on the within the cells group, in the format area on the Home tab in the ribbon. In this demonstration, we're going to look at just some adjustments on cells and columns and rows. We've been asked to present some data here in the spreadsheet about our sales team to company leadership. It's going to be at an upcoming meeting. Essentially they're just trying to gauge the performance of individual sales team members. But as we look at this, some of the information isn't necessarily to present. Some of it doesn't need to be visible. So we're going to want to hide some of the columns. Some of the columns just take up a little bit too much space. We need to adjust their width. Maybe one of our sales reps that's in this sheet has left the company, so we need to delete her information. So we've got the sales data workbook open, and we're going to make some of these adjustments. First off, let's just go to the first column. We can see there's a lot of white space here, all right? And so you can select column A, just to select the entire column. And then on the Home tab in the cells group, we have different options. If we just click on the arrow underneath Format, we have the auto-fit row height and auto-fit column width. Okay, so we're just going to say we want to auto-fit the column width, and then it'll just automatically shorten it, or in other cases increase it. That feature will increase or decrease to fit just the column that has the most text in it. Okay. Now another way of doing that here on row B is just to double click that column heading. Okay, if you double click between the B and the C, then it will auto fit as well. All right, so you can use the menu option that was over here, or we can just double click. Just make sure you select the column, and then when you do that, if that's what you want to do. If there's something you want to undo, we'll just, like that last one, I'm just going to go up here and undo that one. But let's hide some columns. So some columns that have the quarterly sales data. We're just going to click the column header for C, and then we're going to hold down Shift, go over to F, hold down Shift, and left click. That's going to select all of those columns. Now we could just have dragged to select the range. And now we're going to go again to the Home tab, and again to Cells and Format. And only this time we're going to go down to Hide and Unhide and just say we want to hide these columns. When we choose Hide Columns, notice we immediately go from B to G. There's nothing in between apparently, although there is a slight difference, right? You can see that that's, a little bit, it's at least an indication there that there's some stuff there. Now, our salesperson who's gone, so let's go down to Smith. All right, row 14 is employee Smith. And then I'm just going to go up here to delete. And I do want to, do I want to delete the cells or do I want to delete the row? In this case, I just want to delete the whole row. All right? And so it removes that row. Wagner is now in row 14. And everything matches. When we go up to look at these values, it's still going to be the correct values. Okay? So let's save this. We'll go File and Save As. Put the word my in front of it so we don't get rid of the original. It's a good kind of thing to think about if you're working on workbooks. You might want to give them a unique name so as not to overwrite the original. So that gave us a look at how to adjust cells, column heights, and or column width, and row information. In this next topic, we're going to look at the methods you can use to search for data and replace that data. Maybe this is something that you just mistakenly entered into a worksheet. Maybe it's a mistake that you then compounded because you made it over and over and over again. So there's a find and replace option that we have in Excel that is going to be very helpful in those types of situations. So to start, we would use the find command, and that's going to allow us to just look for specific content within the worksheet, the workbook as a whole. When you launch the find command, it's going to open up this find and replace dialog box. But notice there's two tabs, find and replace. Find is chosen by default. You can then search for all different kinds of content. This is fairly straightforward. We can look and say find what. Here's our search query. We can actually be looking for data that's not just raw data, but actually formatted in a particular way. And then we can specify the scope of the search. The scope of the search just determines where Excel is going to look for this data. So within this worksheet or the entire workbook. Do we want to search by rows? Do we want to look into particular values? Do I need to match case? Is it a partial match, or should I match the entire cell contents? These are all options that you have. And then notice once you hit find, or find all of the things that are found are going to display for you down at the bottom. Okay, so a lot of good options in here that you have available to you to help you find that data that you specifically need to access and potentially change. Of course, what follows that is replace. All right, so I may want to find data just to simply find it in a large worksheet. But what's often more common is that I'm looking to find data so that I can then replace it. Find just looks for a particular text. Replace is then going to say, well, I want you to find this text and I want you to replace it with something else. In this case, those options of matching the entire cell contents can actually be pretty important, because you may have somewhere else, for instance, that has the value of south where you don't need to change it to southwest. So just keep that in mind as we go through, or as you go through and you run into this option. Another option that we have is the Go To dialog box. This allows you to quickly go to any cell within a workbook or worksheet. It works very much the same way as the name box in older versions used to navigate. Basically, you just enter the cell reference and you click OK, and it'll go right to that cell. If you want to navigate to a cell on a different worksheet within the same workbook, you would reference it like we did in the previous chapter by putting in the name of the worksheet followed by an exclamation point before the cell reference or the range reference. Now, the biggest difference between this and the name box is that this dialog box actually saves a list of cells that you've previously gone to. So that's what we're seeing there with the navigation history. This is on the Home tab of the ribbon in the Editing command group. And then you'll have Find and Select and Go To. There's a keyboard shortcut for that one, which is especially helpful if you're going to use it a lot, and that is just simply the F5 key. The Go To Special feature, far more powerful than the Go To feature. Okay? Go To just allows you to navigate directly to a particular cell. It's not that big of a deal. That's handy because maybe I just want to avoid manually navigating to it. It's a really large worksheet. I just want to type in the reference that I'm going to. But the Go To Special feature works on just whatever's the currently selected worksheet. Selected cells, when you use this feature, are going to behave like they normally do when you select a range. So you can add formatting to all the cells at once. You can delete the content of all the cells. You can use the tab or enter key to navigate among that range. All right, but you can see here where you're looking for something that is particular. So comments, I'd be looking for all the cells that contain comments. Constants, I'd be looking for constants. Remember, that's numbers, text, and then logicals like a Boolean value, true or false. Formulas, you'd be looking for formulas, and you can pick particular categories of formulas. So you notice it's looking more at the formatting. I'm looking for blanks. I'm looking only within the current region. I'm looking for row differences. So all the cells in the same row as the selected one that don't have the same data. Okay? They don't have the same content. It's trying to find what's different, what precedes it, all the data feeding the formula in the directed cell. And so you've got some options there. You've got dependent, same thing. That asks you the question of direct only in all levels, direct only on dependence. Any cell that has formulas that this cell is feeding into, and is it direct or is it then sort of a chained effect? This can be in more complicated worksheets where I'm trying to hunt down the precedent for this cell, where it's getting its information from, or the other cells that are dependent upon it. In this demonstration, we're going to look at searching for and replacing data. As we've discussed, Excel has a number of features like the find command, the replace command, and the go to special command that will allow us to find information in very large spreadsheets, or spreadsheets of any kind, and then act upon that information, do something with it, change it to something else. Okay, so we've got this open. We don't really need to have anything selected. All right, we're just going to go on the Home tab in the Editing group. We have the Find and Select. Okay, so when you go to Find and Select, you have Find, Replace, Go To, and Go To Special. So really, it's if I were just to select this, then I'm just going to open up the Find box, and really all it is, you notice, is just two different tabs. This is the Find and Replace dialog box, so I can type in some text here, in this case a salesperson's name, and just hit Find Next, and it will take me to that. It will take me to that individual. So it's on A17, okay? Now on B17, I need to type Southwest. So I needed to change his information. All right, and so we'll do that. What if we have somebody whose name needs to be replaced? Okay, so somebody who is married. We've got that. Clark. We'll double click, and then we can just go up and select that, and we can make a change. Okay, so we're going to change that last name to King and hit enter. All right. Go back up to Find and Replace if you know that you're going to do Replace. So let's go up here and actually now look and type in King. That's going to take us to A23. Okay, so that's the last name, and then I'm just going to type in Connor. All right, I can do that and just hit Replace, and now it will replace that. It takes me up to the other reference of King. I actually want to replace that back with Clark because I clicked on the wrong individual. So then I'll replace there, okay? So the dialog box stays up. Now how about if we want to find all blank cells and update the data? Well, in this case, we do need a range, so I'm going to go A4 down to L27, which is our last row there. Okay, actually, I got more than what I wanted to get. We'll just go that way. Okay, so I'm going to get that whole thing, and then we're going to go back up here to Find and Select and use the Go To Special dialog box, and then just say we're looking for blanks. I'm looking for blank information, then I'll hit OK. Okay, it takes me to the first blank. That's B15. It's got it highlighted, and so then I can just type in what I would like that to be. Okay. Don't press Enter. If you press Enter, then you're going to have to redo the Go To Special Search. Instead, we would press Tab. It will take me to the next empty cell, okay, and then I can make a change there. So make that South as well. All right. Now, we've got some stuff in here. We've got some West entries, and we want to change all the West entries to Southwest. So just go up here at A1, so it'll start at the top, and then we'll go to Find and Replace. And I'm going to say, okay, I want you to find any West, and then I want you to replace it with Southwest. Okay? And then at that point, we can just, if we're sure, then we would just say that we want to replace all. Now, usually what you'll do is you'll say Find Next, Replace, okay? Then Find, and then Replace again, and at some point you just say, okay, let's just replace all. All right, and at that point it comes up and says, okay, we're done. We've made 7 replacements, and so you can kind of see what is done here. Now it looks like interesting. Looks like it changed lowest because it saw west and added southwest in there, so that was odd. I'm not sure exactly what we did in the go-to special box that made it do that. But so that's just an example of your find and replace. Okay, now there are keyboard shortcuts for that. Control F will open up that find and replace. Control R will as well. And then we have various options if you want to match case or entire cell content and those kinds of things. But those are very useful tools for searching for and replacing data. In this next topic, we're going to look at using the proofing and researching tools that you have within Excel. You may not always be asked to do this, but it's possible that at some point you'll have to share workbooks with other people. And, you might want to make sure all your content's correct before you put it in a sort of presentation. You might want to make sure you've got all the correct data, all the correct formulas in the worksheet. Make sure everything's spelled correctly, right? And that's why we've got spell checks, we've got other functionality to make sure the content's ready to present to others. The first of those is the spelling dialog box. This is a pretty simple one to utilize. F7 has always been the keyboard shortcut for spelling, but you've also got it on the review tab in the proofing group of commands. Spell check is a spell check, okay? It will go through and it will find what it believes to be errors in your worksheet and the data that is contained there, and then it will provide you with suggestions. You can choose to change that particular spelling mistake or change all of them. You can also access the autocorrect options, as you can see with that button. That will allow you to say, hey, I always want you to just automatically correct this. If you do find something like an acronym or a brand name, some copyright term that's just not an actual word, which certainly does happen, then you could just tell it to ignore. You could say ignore once or ignore all, or if I want to ignore it across multiple worksheets and workbooks, then I would add that to the saved dictionary. Once it's been added to the dictionary, then you will no longer be asked about that particular word anymore. Excel also has a handy feature that you can use if you want to just search for synonyms or antonyms or related terms to a particular word or phrase. This is not something that's overly common when using a program like Excel. This is more common if you were using Word or PowerPoint. But you can use the thesaurus task pane to make those changes. Okay? So you search for a particular term, it shows you the search results, it shows you the additional options that you've got. You can change dictionaries. Pretty straightforward feature. You also have the Smart Lookup task pane. This can help you do research on your data from a number of different online resources. It'll use the active cell's contents as a search query to run in the Bing search engine. So it's basically just like a built-in Google, although it does use Bing. You have this on the review tab as well in the Insights group. There will be Smart Lookup. You can also access that by just right-clicking a cell that has data in it and then choosing Smart Lookup from that. You'll see some results here. You'll just see kind of a heading. You'll see where the results came from, and then you can click on those links. It'll open up a web page and take you right to that information. So Excel does contain some abilities to check, spelling and thesaurus and things like that. In this demonstration, we're just going to look at checking the spelling. Some of the other research kind of capabilities aren't necessarily useful with Excel. It's just not the kind of data that we're dealing with. But spell check is certainly, not one of those. We do want to check spelling. So we're going to do Control Home. That's going to get us back to cell A1. Then I'm going to go to the Review tab. And in the Review tab, we've got a proofing section. Okay? In the proofing section, you've got spelling there. So you just click on spelling. It opens up the spelling dialog box and actually immediately starts to go through and identify problems that it might have. Okay, so it's identified commission as a misspelled word, and it is in fact misspelled. Okay, so if you want to change it to the suggested value, then you just simply click change. Okay, notice it's found it again, so at that point I'm just going to say, well, you know what, let's just correct all instances, and it will change all. Now note that it's going to find proper nouns and start suggesting things. At that point, you're just going to have to say ignore all. Okay? So it is ignoring those. Now it's taken a look at, we've got some erroneous entries here where it did, our replacement was not great. Okay, so let's see. So we are going to close that, and if you want, you can just provide values of what these are supposed to be. So Southwest, and then we can say change all. Okay, that changed them. It actually fixed them all. So it was. I didn't fix this one because it wasn't the exact same way. But we're going to hit ignore all on several of these others. Southwest, yes, that needs to be changed to Southwest. And then you're going to end up hitting ignore for many others as well. All right. And it just does that when it's going to find proper nouns and it thinks it's a problem. So that's the spell check. F7 is the keyboard shortcut for it. Really just make sure you're at the part of your document where if it scans anywhere beneath that, it can find spelling mistakes, and then it will help you to fix them. In this chapter, we looked at modifying worksheets by inserting data, deleting cells, adjusting rows and columns and their width, and understanding how to do those things. Okay. We also looked at searching and replacing, doing spell checks, etc. Being able to modify your worksheet is going to give you the flexibility that you need to be able to build upon existing workbooks. We don't want to typically start from scratch just because we have significant changes that are needed. If you're able to do that, then that means you're always going to be able to produce and develop very functional, very professional looking worksheets, and you're not going to have to waste a lot of your valuable time. In this chapter, we're going to look at formatting worksheets. Excel is about data input. However, especially on worksheets that have just a large amount of data, coloring and shading and font sizes, cell sizes, all of those things can make a difference. It makes the worksheet more readable, and it helps you to ensure that the appropriate things stand out. So it's everything about formatting. That's what we're dealing with here. We'll talk about applying text formats, formats to numbers, aligning the contents of cells vertically, horizontally, diagonally, applying various styles and themes. Conditional formatting. Conditional formatting would be formatting that is based on a condition. Okay, so if a value is less than 100, then color code it red, for instance. And then if we do find ourselves repeating formatting, then we can take great advantage of the use of templates. In this first topic, we're going to look at applying text formats. Text formats in the font sizes and the color, in the style, they're going to make it easy for the eye to pick out particular information. And especially in the case of Excel, sometimes this information is in a large amount of other data. And so we need things like column headers to stand out so that the user or the reader is able to understand the point that we are trying to get across. So let's start by talking about fonts. Fonts are just a typeface, if you want. There is actually a lot of confusion around this topic. Basically, a font is just a collection of characters that you are then going to be using in your word processor, spreadsheet program, etc. Okay? You can change the font. You can change the font size. We see 5 different fonts that are listed here. and you can tell that there's a big difference in the characters and how they look. So fonts and changing those fonts can give certain data prominence over other data. So we can set up column headers, have those appear and stand out. And they simply make your worksheets more visually pleasing. While this isn't Word, this isn't PowerPoint, we're not necessarily doing presentations, but you have to work in the spreadsheet and you want it to be visually pleasing. You have others looking at the spreadsheet as a report and you want it to be visually pleasing. So that's just something that is important to us, even in a program like Excel. The font group on the Home tab in Excel is going to give you access to most of your commonly used commands for adjusting fonts in your worksheet. From here you can change the type, the size, the color, and everything's pretty clearly labeled here. Let's start with the top where we have the term Calibri. Calibri is a particular font, and so there's a drop-down menu there that you can choose different fonts from there. The font size right next to it, quickly increase and decrease. Actually, if you want to just increase one at a time or decrease one at a time, you can use the buttons directly to the right of that. Below that, we have the font color drop-down menu, which allows me to choose from preset font color, or a custom color. And then you can see we have borders and we have underlining, italics, and bold. The underlining, italics, and bold, those are really relevant to the text that is in the selected cell. One of the cool things about the newer versions of Office, and this is a dynamic feature that you have in Excel, is it allows you to see what the particular formatting change is actually going to look like before you select it. So as we move our mouse, for instance here in the font sizes, you can see the text will increase, and it will do so dynamically. So that's gonna help you just to make the right choice. This is as opposed to selecting one font size, having to go back, select another one. You can kind of see on the fly what's happening. In addition to the font group, you also have the Format Cells dialog box. Basically, this dialog box has every command, every option for formatting the worksheet fonts. It also has a variety of other formatting options. Okay, so what you do is launch the Format Cells dialog box, and then we can just kind of see all these options in tabbed form. We've got number, we've got alignment, we've got border fill protection. We're going to talk about a number of these things. Right now, you would just be dealing with fonts, and you would be dealing with colors. The strike through, superscript, and subscript, those are effects that are not available out on the main ribbon. In addition to the common font colors that are available from the font color drop-down menu, you have the ability to create custom colors. There's a wide range of colors that you can come up with, and so it's really completely up to you. You can launch that colors dialog box, and that will give you a lot more capabilities when it comes to coloring of your font. A hyperlink is a link within a document that when you click on it, takes you somewhere else. Now, we're familiar with hyperlinks on the web because usually you click on any link on a website, it is a link that's taking you to another web page. The same thing is true in Excel. We can navigate to different locations within the document. We can open other documents. We could have a hyperlink that creates a new document. You could have a hyperlink that navigates to a web page. You could have a hyperlink that starts an email message. So these are all additional options that you can have if you utilize hyperlinks. In order to use hyperlinks, we're going to use the Insert Hyperlink dialog box and then possibly the Edit Hyperlink dialog box in order to make changes to hyperlinks. Okay, so they are the big differences. In the one case, you're creating a hyperlink, and in the other, you're just editing an existing one. As we go to create the hyperlink, you see on the left-hand side we have existing file or web page. We have a place in this document, create a new document, email address. So those are the options that I mentioned. And then in the details area, you can kind of go to that address that you want. You can always just click down in where it says per product sales data. You can always just click down there and type in your location if you prefer that way. Even in a program like Excel, you're going to find yourself needing to repeat the same formatting. Maybe it's just multiple sheets in a workbook. Maybe it is multiple tables within the same sheet. But there are going to be times when we want to just copy the formatting. All right, I've already created the formatting. Now I just want to duplicate this. This is done by using the Format Painter option. The Format Painter is just like a paintbrush. If you enable it, then whatever font, size, alignment, any type of formatting that you have in the cell currently selected, then you will be able to just click and apply to everything else. It's like having a big paintbrush, and you can just apply these formats, these fonts, sizes, alignments, all of that to other areas of your worksheet. Format Painter can save you a lot of time. If you single click it, then it's one paintbrush and you're done. If you double click it, the Format Painter stays on until you select it again, right there from the Home tab in the ribbon. Now we're going to take a look at a demonstration where we look at just some of the formatting options that you have in Excel. So, this is the same spreadsheet that we've seen. It's obviously just got a lot of data in it and not a lot of formatting. If we're going to send this out, we want to clean it up, make it look a little bit better. And so let's go about doing that. Okay, so just sales data. We've got a title here, sales ledger, and then row 4 is your column labels. And we've got some constant values that we use as absolute references in various formulas. If I want to change the font on the whole spreadsheet, if you click your top left arrow there, that's going to select absolutely everything. And then if we just go up into the font area, we get a drop down box and we can choose a separate font. That's going to be a pretty straightforward thing, although Excel is taking its sweet time. So I'm just going to go down. And you can type something in if you want. If you just want to type in Arial, that's not what we wanted to do. And we can see that it will automatically show you the changes. So as you hover over something, it's going to change the font there. So I'm just going to go back to Arial, hit enter, and now it changes the entire worksheet to Arial. All right, now let's format the title of this, so sales ledger, and we can do a couple of things, but let's just go. I think we're going to go and just put this in a blue color. Let's just choose regular blue. And then say in that blue, let's also put it in bold, and we want to make it a little bit bigger. So we click the drop down here, and let's change it to 16. And you can see how it's going to stand out. So 16, 18 is probably sufficient to just allow us to see that a little bit better. Now let's move down to the column labels. We'll just select. Now you could select all of row 4, but that's going to select all of this as well. So if you just want the column labels, then we're just going to click and drag so that we get all of the column labels. And let's just change that, slightly increase the font to 12 and put it in bold. All right, and then we can make that change. Now we also want to adjust the column widths to accommodate those labels. So we have everything selected, and remember we go to format and then just auto fit column width. All right, and that'll clean that up nicely for us. Okay, so now we've formatted the title. Now we've also formatted the column labels. And what if we want to apply that same change over here? Well, we can use the Format Painter for that. We can just select that here on the Home tab at the clipboard group. Notice it now highlights Format Painter so you know it's active. And then whatever you do, gets applied, or whatever you select, gets applied. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that because I didn't want to get those. I just wanted to get these. Okay, but notice what happened. Oh, I don't have the Format Painter anymore. So we're going to go back and grab this. If you double-click Format Painter, now it is still active, notice. Whereas before, after one time, it wasn't active. And so then you can just go select it again to turn it off, and we'll go and just double-click that to adjust that. All right, now let's insert a link. This is the sales data, so we're going to go to Insert, go over to the Links group, and then Insert Link. Okay, the option that you have, existing file or web page. And actually, I'm going to undo that because that's not where I wanted to be. We're going to go over here to Q3, and this is where we're going to insert a link. Okay, so I just did not have, I didn't have the correct thing specified, so that's why I was getting some odd options there. Anyway, in a blank one, it's just going to be what text you want to display. So for this, we're just going to say, let's see, click here for additional sales data. Okay, and we're going to then link to the per product sales data. So if you just double click that, I did it a little fast, double click that, and we'll expand this heading here, or this cell. So notice now it's just that. Let's test it out. If you hold over the screen tip, it'll show you the file that it's going to open up. But if I click on that, it should actually open up that document in another window. And there we have it. Okay, so sorry, it looked similar, but that is the actual document. Close that down. We're still back at the old. And that's inserting a hyperlink. So that's going to conclude the demonstration. We looked at just some of the formatting options that you are going to have, as well as adding a hyperlink to a worksheet. In this next topic, we're going to look at applying number formats. Numerical data is very common in Excel, and you want to, be able to express it, work with it in a number of ways. In some cases, we may want dollar symbols. In other cases, we may not. In some cases, we may want 2 decimal points. In other cases, we may want to round up. There are a number of preset formatting options that Excel has, and we're going to be dealing with the number formats. So number formats change the display of numeric data in Excel worksheets. You can control the display of currency figures, of dates and times, of fractions, decimal places, negative numbers, all of that. All right. As much of what is displayed in worksheet cells, the number formatting is only going to affect how the data is displayed. So it does not affect the data that's stored in the cells. It's just what it looks like. That's what formatting is all about. And we do have the number formats drop-down menu. When you have a currency number format, if you have a percentage, you can select that cell or multiple cells, and then you can choose currency, accounting, short dates, long dates, times, percentages. You can choose the type of data. It helps Excel just to understand the type of data that it's dealing with and how you would like to format it as a number. So the number formatting options are arranged by categories, and they're grouped by function. So when we get into the Format Cells dialog box, we have a tab called Number, and there is another place where you can make changes to how you want that number displayed. Let's talk about these briefly. General just displays numeric data exactly as you enter it. It's the default numbering format. Number, you can control how many decimal places are displayed. Currency is also how many decimal places are displayed, and then whether or not to use the currency symbols. It's also how Excel displays negative numbers. Accounting just gives you the ability to control decimal points. Dates, you've got long date, short date. You can include the time. You have percentages, fractions. Scientific is for very large numeric values and scientific notation. And then we have text and special. Okay, so text, for instance, or special, like a zip code, a social security number, things of that nature could be going into special. And technically, you can use custom. You can come up with whatever number formats you would like. Here we see that if none of the existing number formatting options fit your particular needs, then you can create and apply custom number formatting. So Excel is going to use strings of code to create number formats. You can see that here. These are not actual numbers. They are code strings. They're looking for a set number of values. Okay? There's a significant difference between the number sign and the zero here. Zeros represent digits that will always appear in cells, even when the value is zero. Number signs represent numbers that can, but don't necessarily have to appear. So the hashtag, if you want to call it that, the pound sign, is a wild card. If you use a number, you're saying it must be included. If you use the pound sign, you're saying it may be included. So shorter numbers would not have zero values in that. All right, so we have the sales data worksheet looking a little better, but there's still some opportunities here, I think, to make things easier to read. And notice we've got some column width problems here, and then we also have a bunch of currency that doesn't really have the right values. Okay? So let's start here in C5. So we actually need to go back. There we go. Okay, so from C5, I mean, these are a bunch of numeric values, and where do the numeric values end? Well, they end all the way, over here, or no? Yeah, they end there, but for right now, let's just go through these totals, okay? Because we may want to do these a little bit different, so I'm just going to drag or grab all of this, drag it down until we have the whole thing selected. Then we're going to go back to home. And in number here, you've got the format, so we've got a drop-down box, and we can just format this for currency. Okay? We'll select currency, and it gives us 2 decimal places. We don't necessarily have to do that if you're not happy with that. That's just because we hit the drop-down. If you launch this dialog box, then you're going to have a couple of additional options. And so if I want to go ahead and do 0 decimal places, because kind of overall numbers, then that's fine. All right. We've got some other ones, so H5 decay, and so as I said, I mean, if you wanted to, you could just do the same thing. Now, one thing to do here also, Format Painter, and then we can just apply those same settings to anything that is selected. Okay? So it works with colors, it works with fonts, and then it works with basically any kind of formatting. So let's go here to Q1 where we had our hyperlink, which I did not mean to actually select. Okay, so now we have Q1 selected. Let's launch this dialog box again. And then we're going to apply a date format. Okay. And in this case, that might seem a little odd just because it's a hyperlink, but if you want to, let's copy that formatting settings here. All right. And so then if I select, for instance, 3/12/2012, okay, it's going to put that in there. Now, as you go in, if you want to have, again, a little bit more capabilities, then we can change how this looks. All right. So I'd go like that. Okay, and then it's going to change that value. So the formatting for the hyperlink, there's some formatting, some other in some other areas as well. So those are just a couple of additional things that we can do. Making currency changes, making dates, and specifying exactly how it's going to look. All of those are at your disposal. So far, we've looked at formatting, and we've applied formatting to text and to numbers. But you may also want to make your worksheets easier to read and interpret by controlling where the data is displayed within the cell. So in this topic, we're going to look at aligning cell contents and making choices. Like, would it be easier to view row totals if the numbers were displayed on the left or the right? Should the title be displayed centered, or do we want to angle the column headers? We're going to be able to do all of this by looking at the alignment options in Excel. So Excel gives you the ability to control where the content appears horizontally and vertically within the worksheet cells. Now, by default, it aligns numeric data to the right side, and along the bottom, it aligns text data to the left side and along the bottom. But you have the option with your alignment commands, this alignment group, to change that. All right? So the alignment commands there on the left of centering versus left align, right align, how it looks horizontally. You can see the angles right next to that, what to do with wrapping text. So there are a number of options that you have there, and of course, whatever cell you have selected or range you have selected will have those options applied to them. Now, in order to display data in a worksheet legibly, you may have to change the actual orientation of some of the text. So, for instance, this employee name, it takes up so much space, we might decide on a number of these that rather than have a bunch of white space in the data due to the length of the column headings, we can angle the column headings, all right? And this is just you get this from the orientation section in the alignment tab. Pretty easy to change. We can angle it counterclockwise or clockwise. We can have vertical text. We can rotate text up and down. We have a lot of different options when we get into that area. You can use the indent commands to increase or decrease the amount of space between the cell data and the cell border. It's going to be based on your alignment. So if you're right alignment and you want to increase, you have increase, decrease, those are the buttons, but obviously the direction that you're going is going to depend on what side the text is aligned on. So it just allows you to get a little bit of extra space or less space between the data and the border. Now, by default, when you have a cell that has a really large amount of text, the text is going to spill over into the next column. That's only if those cells are empty. And if they're not empty, then it just truncates the display of it. Okay? So it doesn't show you. It's only going to show you a certain number of fields. You can see in this case in column 1, or excuse me, in row 1, there is nothing in the corresponding cells. B1, C1, D1, etc. And so it just spills it over. However, in row 2, you do have data in B2, and so you can see how it cuts it off, versus wrap text, the last option, where it keeps increasing the horizontal size of the row in order to show all of the words in that particular column. So this is just a choice that you have to make, on an individual case-by-case basis. Excel also allows you to merge contiguous cells across either rows or columns. Basically, it's going to take those cells. We're assuming that one of the cells, or more than one, doesn't have any data in it, and it's going to merge it. So I add the into A1 there, or I select rows 1 through 3. Maybe the first 8 columns, I type in, I merge and center, type in sales ledger, I have one big column, right? It's not one big column, it's just those cells are treated as one. It's really more of a display thing. So merge and center, merge across, merge specific cells that are selected and unmerged cells, those are your options. If you do merge a cell and then you need to revert it, then you can just use the unmerge option. All right, so the worksheet's coming along here fairly nicely. We've formatted text, we've applied numbers, currency values, make things easier to read, but there's still some adjustments here that we could make. The columns, they're not really lining up, so we have some alignment settings that we can use. So I'm going to go C4 to G4 here. All right, on these quarter 1, quarter 2, and 3, and then we can decide how we want to align these. This is in the alignment command group, and so we can put them on the right, we can put them on the left, we can center them, and then you have the horizontal alignment as well. All right, so if you want to align it more in the middle, that's really more for cells that are larger, okay, but you can do that. Let's see, A1 through L3. Let's grab this whole, and we're going to use the merge and center option. So if you just click merge and center, then it merges it. This is where the horizontal alignment is possibly a little bit better. And then maybe we would want to do a some sort of background. Okay, so you can do that with the fill option. And we've got these areas over here, so let's make some changes. We'll just grab that, or actually those are okay. We can do the wrapping of text if you want. I extended the size there. Okay, so if we do wrap text, notice now it's truncated on that display. All right, so again, if that's how you want it, that's fine. We can expand it as well. And let's see, let's do one more thing. We'll just expand that out a little bit. We're going to just do those changes individually. There's no real one way to do that. Just again, it's whatever you would like, but you can kind of go through and play with those options. I think that looks a little bit better. We'll go here and just say we want to right align all of those, or whatever you would like to do. I believe we left align the other one. So those formatting changes are really up to you. We're just here all about kind of showing you how to go in and make those and use those options. Now, many of the formatting changes that we are making, we may need to make on multiple occasions. So, especially if you create and analyze data in a number of large worksheets, you'll find that you don't want to repeat this. I don't want to individually apply formatting to different sections, data types, worksheet elements. If I'm working there a lot, that is going to be a pain. Okay, it's going to be a lot of wasted effort. So one of the reasons we want to learn new programs and learn about them is so that we can become more efficient. And using styles and themes, what we're going to discuss in this topic, is one way to do that. If you looked at a large number of Excel worksheets from a number of different organizations, maybe different fields of work, you'd probably quickly notice that a lot of them contain some very similar data types. Sales figures, calculations, column and row totals, column and row labels, those are just a few of those. It's actually a fairly small variety of data types that appear over and over, if not in most worksheets. So it makes sense to distinguish these from other types of data quickly and easily, and you can do that by using cell styles. Cell style is just a unique set of formatting options that you can apply to a cell or to a range within a worksheet. They can include any type of formatting options. There are a number of predefined cell types, and you can even create your own custom styles. So you're going to find this on the Home tab in the Styles group, and there's a Cell Styles command that will allow me to make these choices. For a lot of different formatting options, Excel, like the other Office programs, have a more of a visually oriented type of menu. That's what we're seeing here, the galleries. And so you can see all of the pre-configured cell styles that you have. You also get a live dynamic view of this, so you'll see the styles change as you hover over one of these. So titles and headings, you can make sure you've got your actual titles, your column headers selected, and then you can see that. And then we can do ranges and alternating theme styles. Really just make good-looking worksheets. You'll use the Style dialog box to change existing cell styles to create custom cell styles if you wish. It has a number of different formatting option checkboxes that you can use to turn particular formatting options off or on. Okay, so those are the checkboxes that you see. Style includes, and this is all that it includes, so you can create your own custom style and then modify it. Now you can just say it includes everything and not make a change, and then you can go in and modify it later. By default, Excel saves custom cell styles within the workbook. So what that means is they're not actually going to be available for other workbooks. So if you do want to use same numeric styles, same heading styles across multiple workbooks, you're going to need to access the Merge Styles dialog box. That will search all open workbooks for any custom styles, and it will allow you to merge them, move them into the active workbook file. If you don't do this, custom styles created in other workbooks would not be available to you. Themes are another option in Excel. They're a collection of formatting options that can be applied to a whole workbook. So in previous to this, we've been talking about selecting a cell, selecting a range, and then applying formatting options to that range. Well, a theme is for the entire workbook, right? They are pre-configured. You certainly can create your own. You can save the current theme. By default, all the new blank workbooks just have the Office theme, the one on the top left. Okay, but there are a number of other options. This is actually using the Page Layout tab. And then there is a themes group in there, and that will make you or give you the ability to make changes. Excel themes consist of three components: colors, fonts, and effects. Really, Excel themes contain a combination of multiple fonts, multiple colors, and a predefined set of effects. So you kind of want to look at, to get a better understanding, we want to just look at what each of these components do. So theme colors, for instance, there's every theme, whether it's custom or pre-existing, has a set of 12 colors, 4 text and background, 6 accent, 2 hyperlink colors. Okay? And you can just make your choice, but the theme is then going to include the coloring. You then also have fonts. Fonts is another component, and it's just, again, pre-existing or custom templates. They have 2 fonts, heading font and a body font. And then you have theme effects. Theme effects cannot be customized. You can select from a gallery of 15 predefined configurations, but it's a what you see is what you get type of thing. So just understanding those 3 components that make up themes will help us to understand that when we change the theme, it is a very large change that we are undertaking. It's going to modify virtually all aspects of that workbook. So we have some guidelines for using themes. Themes are an important step in enhancing the visual appeal of the workbook, and even keeping the visual appeal consistent across multiple documents is very useful. It's one of those things that can be overused, so let's think through some guidelines. We want to apply themes to worksheets whenever possible because it's just going to make it easier to format the data. Think efficiency. You can, if you want some more company branding, then you can create a custom theme. You can set fonts, colors, and effects to your liking. Do remember it's easier to modify an existing theme than to build one from scratch just because of the number of elements that they have in them. You can keep in mind also that themes are meant to facilitate reuse. So I'm not going to just do this. I'm not going to create a theme if I just need it on one workbook. We would be more likely to be reusing that from the get-go. They need to be stored in the default folder created by Excel. That is necessary so we can merge them into others. We would like to try to be consistent, don't have the themes constantly changing, especially in related workbooks. Keep in mind that manually changing the format of the data will override the theme format. So just because you've applied a theme doesn't mean you can't change anything. You do need to make sure your cell styles work with your themes. Colors should be chosen that blend well together when you're creating custom themes. Really, the primary reason of doing really disparate colors would be to highlight particular parts of that data. And we need something to be readable. Okay? Cursive fonts and things like that are probably not a great idea with an Excel workbook because it still needs to be something that's readable to the individual that's viewing it. In this demonstration, we're going to look at applying cell styles and themes. As we look at our spreadsheet here, we are definitely making some headway. But if we're going to present this information, it might be a little bit easier for people to view it, to be able to distinguish between raw data and the data that's been calculated using formulas or functions. Maybe we just want to set the employee names a little bit better way. Let me expand that region there. Okay, so we're going to just make some changes, and we're going to do that through the use of themes. So if I select the first cell and then go to the styles group, okay, we have cell styles. Notice when you click on that, you're going to get your various options, and this is a gallery, okay? And so if I just go down, here's the title slides, okay? Or that's the title group. And so if I go ahead and do that, then it's going to make a change. So it's just a pre-configured style, and in that case for a particular cell, right? What we can do here is we can just right-click and say that we want to duplicate this, or excuse me, not there. We need to go back up here to Cell Styles and then go to Title, and we can duplicate. And by doing that, we can just create a separate style. This is creating your own custom style. And so I'm going to just call this the Sales Department Title. All right. And at that point, I can click on Format, and I'm going to get other options. This does tell me what the style includes. And so when I click on Format, then I can make a change to the font that I want. So let's go over to the Font tab. And if we wanted to change this, let's just say we're going to put it in bold. Okay? So we're going to keep the same font. We're going to put it in bold. We're going to lessen that to a 16 point. On the colors, we have blue already selected. Okay, so we'll just leave that. And we'll go back to number and just hit OK. So we then want to take out number because this is just font. This is really all I want this style to include. So when we say OK, Excel is going to save that style for us. Now, of course, you can take my word for it, but you can also verify it. So if you go up under Cell Styles again, now we should have an additional option. Where exactly is our additional option? Well, if we look here, we've got good, bad, and neutral, and then we've got custom up top. So this is my custom style that I've saved, and the screen tip comes up and tells me that that's actually what it is. So now let's apply a cell style to the employee name column and the quarterly sales column. So in this case, we want to grab just the employee names. We don't want the headers, so we're going to go down there, and we're going to choose all of those. Now if I go to Cell Styles, I'm going to see all my styles, and here's my theme cell. And so let me just do this. Okay, 20% accent 1. Well, maybe we want something different. Accent 6. That goes a little bit better with our heading, maybe. And then how would I go about doing that for our money ranges here? Okay, so here's all of our quarterly money ranges. So we're just going to grab that whole thing, and then at that point, I'm just basically making the exact same change, right? Or 20%. If you wanted it to be slightly different, you could do something like that. All right, let's go to the Page Layout tab and just take a look at themes because we were talking about themes. So in this themes area, you'll see that there are a number of themes. If you just hover your mouse over these, it will change the spreadsheet. Okay, so you can see how it's making changes. And so you have a lot of just built-in stuff. Now, because we've already applied some themes, you may not be getting as big of a change as you would think, but you could just kind of preview what's going on there. You can browse for additional themes. We can go down, and there are many, many different options that you have here. Okay, so we could just decide on one. Let's say Savan. And once you have that selected, then it will just automatically apply itself. We'll go up and save the workbook, and there we go. Okay, now we've worked with some custom themes, custom cell styles, and other formatting options. In this topic, we're going to look at applying conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, as the name would imply, means that you can change formatting types based on a condition, okay? As in a number is above or below a certain value, a percentage is above or below, dates greater than or less than. Those kinds of things can be the elements that build the conditions that determine what actual formatting is going to occur. So conditional formatting is just formatting applied to cells or ranges that make the data visually stand out based on the data meeting particular criteria or conditions. And you can see that pretty clearly here. Now, we don't necessarily know what the condition is, but if I had to guess, it's 500,000, right? So in the total, for instance, you're in the red if you're under 500,000. We have a green on the average. We have the commissions, which may be showing how much commission they have in relation to their commissions cap. Something like that. All right. So we're going to just access the cells that we want to change, and then we're going to get into the conditional formatting options, and then they'll be applied based on a condition. So each of the conditional formatting options that we're going to talk about has its own dialog box. They all basically have the same dialog box, but few minor exceptions for things that are just more option specific. Okay, so for example, the between dialog box has two fields for values, whereas this greater than and the less than dialog box, they just have one field value because we're just looking for a certain value. Is it greater than, less than? If it is, this is what I want to do. Okay, so the with then is the actual formatting options that you'd like to use if it meets the criteria. One of the most common types of conditional formatting is highlighting cells that contain data that meet certain criteria, right? So it exceeds or falls below certain criteria. And to do this, you can just select one of the options from the Highlight Cells rules menu. They're going to allow you to select criteria that you want to use for the formatting of your cell. And then the specific formatting options. So you're basically just going to say, hey, if it's greater than this value, then this is what we want to color code. So greater than, less than, between two values, equal to a certain value. You can even look for text. You can look for a certain date. Duplicate values can be identified and highlighted just to make it easier to pick them out and pick out potential mistakes. So lots of different options with the Highlight Cells rules. In addition to the Highlight Cells rules, we have the top-bottom rules. This is another common use of conditional formatting. So we want to highlight either the cells that are either the highest or the lowest values within a particular range. All right. So this is going to be on the Home tab in the Styles group, conditional formatting, and then we'll see the option for top and bottom rules. Another type of formatting is the data bars. Data bars are graphical representations of a relative value. All right, so this is what we saw for the commission. The larger the value is in a particular cell, the longer the data bar will be. And there are a number of pre-formatted data bar styles. You have several options there that are available as well. This is in its own little separate section within conditional formatting. So you have a lot of options to customize the appearance and behavior of your data bars. Like data bars, color scales are going to give viewers a graphical representation of relative values of the cell data. But in this case, instead of appearing as bars of different lengths, color scales are just going to use different shades. So you pick either 2 or 3 colors, and it uses various shades of those colors. If you choose 2 colors, for instance, the darker the color, the closer the value is to either the highest or lowest values. Use a 3 color, then you can define low range, middle range, and high range values. So it's just a different way of representing where a particular number is in relation to all of the other numbers in this case in this one column. Excel has icons sets as well. They function much in the same way as data bars and color scales, but they use a set of icons to represent relative values. Okay, so we have average values, we have above average, below average. You can see the differences there. Same kind of concept, just a different way of implementing that. In this demonstration, we're going to look at some conditional formatting. This is a great example of something like this where, maybe we just want to highlight certain values and we want to format them in a different way, okay? And you can easily do that. In fact, let's do it in this range. Okay, so we're just going to select the entire range. And then we're going to go into our additional formatting. So back on the Home tab, you have conditional formatting here, and then you have the few different options that we've been talking about. So we're going to highlight cell rules, and we're going to say if it's greater than, and then the value that we want to input here. So in our case, 250,000. If it's greater than 250,000, what do we want to do? And you've got different options. So green fill with a dark green text. All right, okay. And we can see how it has now made that change. It's made those, it's identified those, right? How about if we wanted to highlight the lowest 25% of performers in total sales and then the highest 10 in average quarterly sales? Well, we have 2 different fields for this. So for total, just grab the whole total, G5 down to G27. We're going to select that whole thing, and then we're going to go right back up to conditional formatting, top bottom rules, and then we're going to say we want to identify the bottom 10%. Okay? Actually, we said 25, didn't we? Okay, so 25, and we're going to go ahead and leave that light red fill. Or actually, we'll just change it just to light red fill, not actually changing the text. And then hit OK. Okay, and so then we're going to see the bottom 10% of performers. We're going to do something similar with average. So we're going to grab all of those. And then we're going to do top bottom rules here. But in this case, we're going to do the top 10%. Okay, and so for the top 10%, what are we going to change? We're going to do the green again. Okay, so green is good, red is bad when it comes to numbers, and there you have it. All right, now let's talk about commissions. We talked about data bars. Let's look at an option there on data bars. Again, select the entire thing, then hit conditional formatting and data bars, and then you're going to see the various options. Okay, so and you can just make it. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Blue seems to kind of go with ours right here, so we would just select that, and then it's just showing how everything is in relation to the other values. Your top value will go, all the way across, and then the other values will be relative to that. So that's just some basic conditional formatting that Excel 2019 gives us the ability to do. In this next topic, we'll look at the ability to create and use templates. As we've said before, there are many cases with Excel where you're just kind of creating and working with the same workbook over and over and over again. And there are very few, if any, significant changes that happen. So if I have to lay out this basic framework every single time, it's going to be very inefficient. So Excel allows you to leverage existing workbooks and use those to create templates from which you can create additional workbooks that have all of the same major underlying settings. A template is just a file in Excel that has a number of pre-configured or pre-entered workbook elements. This does not only include formatting, it's formatting, formulas, themes, functions, and then you can use those to create new workbooks. All right, now there are hundreds or thousands of templates online that you can download. So when you do go into looking at a template, you have the ability to search, and you can find templates for all manner of things. So budgets, work schedules, vacation planners, etc. Those are just the ones that are shown on the slide. But if you think it's a good candidate for a spreadsheet, then there is a high probability that there will be a template out there for you. Now, the default file format is the XLTX file format. You just go to the Backstage view, so you hit the File tab, and then on the New tab there, you are going to be able to see existing templates. You're going to be able to search. You can see featured as well as your own personal templates. You can access both templates from Office.com as well as templates you've saved locally using the Backstage view. Difference would just be the Featured tab and the Personal tab. So the Featured tab is going to give you a list of new and popular templates that you can choose from and quickly download. The Personal tab is going to display a list of all your template files. They're saved to your computer. They are saved in a very particular spot. It's your own user profile, but it's technically just within your Documents folder. So your Documents folder will now have a Custom Office Templates folder. If you save them there, then they'll be available on the Personal tab. If you save them anywhere else, you'll be able to use them, but you will not be able to access them from the Personal tab. So we've spent a lot of time developing this worksheet that's going to be presented at a sales meeting. It's pretty good, and we're probably likely to need this some other time. So here's where templates come into play in this demonstration. We'll look at creating a template. Now, one of the things you should do when you're creating a template is just get rid of anything that you don't need, okay? So, for instance, A5 to, here's A5. We probably don't need any of this data, okay? We don't actually need that data in there. So we're going to just delete all the cell content, okay? So just right-click and say we want to clear contents. Okay, that doesn't do anything with the formatting. Now, it does obviously modify our other numbers, but it doesn't do anything with the formatting. Employee IDs, another thing that doesn't really need to be done. We can just delete out of that, okay? And then, so once you have that information removed, none of this, it doesn't really matter, then you're ready to save it. So we're going to go to the File tab, and we're going to say we want to save as in this case, okay? And instead of choosing the default type, we're just going to go down, and we want to create an Excel template, XLTX. All right. Notice it then takes you into your Documents directory, into the Custom Office Templates. This is where you need to have this. And then we can just save it. And we'll just leave it as sales data, but it saves that as a template. Okay. So now with that in place, let's make sure that it's available to us. So now if I go File, New, then instead of looking at all the featured templates, if I go to Personal, I'm going to see my sales data template. So right now I can open up, I have to close the other window, Well, okay, so I can create a new document based on that template. It's just my other window was open, which is why I can't do that. So once that is saved, then it's available for additional documents, and that can save you some time. In this chapter, we looked at form.